Well, it's twofold on environmental impact. Is first off, you're diverting stuff from landfills. So you're just, and some of this stuff has toxicity to it. So you're poisoning some of the areas that you are dumping these items. So if you can divert them and then recreate valuable property, well, that allows you to grow at exponential levels that you couldn't before. And also, if you're always counting on finding new resources in the ground, your growth is limited as a world, as a population. So you have to have sustainable growth, you have to be reusing scarce resources. Our future, with the size of the people that we are and the growth levels that we'd like to continue with, cannot happen if you do not have secondary use of items.
Welcome to Sustainability Transformations podcast, where we discuss bold ideas to drive positive change for people, the community, and business. And today's guest is Don Weatherbee, CEO of Regenx Tech Corp. He's leading the charge in clean recovery of platinum group metals from catalytic converters using breakthrough tech that slashes emissions, saves water, and closes critical mineral loops. And the goal or theme of our conversation is to uncover how the regenerative urban mining can strengthen global supply chains, solve the platinum group metal crisis, and create new sustainability ESG benchmarks in mining and manufacturing. Don, thank you for joining us. You've led billion-dollar industries, but what first drew you to the challenge of one of mining's most entrenched systems?
So it was sort of a evolution. Um, I didn't I didn't think I was going to end up where I have, and it's just been a process, a road that we've took down. And I had a long history in mining, and I joined Regenx in its predecessor role when it was just a junior explorer, one of these type of companies that went out and tried to find resources, do a little bit of digging in the ground, try to improve the understanding of the resource, and then try to sell it. But just as I was hired, they had sold the project, and we were looking around going, okay, so what's next? Do we try to find another property? Do we do anything like that? And we began looking and saying, you know, there has to be something different and something better. And we started down the process of looking at some technology. And our first foray into that was in processing technology that was going to go after tailings of old gold mines and hopefully to recover what was uneconomic at that point, which could be now because of changes in technology, changes in pricing. And once you get started down a technology road, things start to open up. And we sort of got inquiries about, could we do something in e-waste? And that led into inquiries saying, there's this issue with silicon carbide based diesel uh, catalytic converters, and that there isn't a ready home to recycle them. And there's a growing system of these that are coming into place. And so we've started down that path in 2020. And that's just how we've led into sort of incremental change, moves you into different directions and sets you up on a whole new path.
I'm curious to know the definition or the thought of the word waste. Do you think that those thinking around what we call waste over time perhaps needs to change, and what your company is doing is changing the fundamental definition of what the traditional definition of waste is?
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's a change in the definition of waste, because what's happening is pure waste. This is stuff that still has a potential life that isn't actually being reused. And so it truly is waste if you don't do something with it, because there's a second life for all this stuff. And so the nomenclature that the industry we're in is sort of tagged itself to is urban mining. And it's about recovering resources from the urban environment so that you can regenerate these metals into their predecessor roles.
Yeah, that's Impressive. So, what was the problem you saw in those traditional metals industry that made you pivot into the clean recovery tech?
So the fundamental of mining is that there it's a finite supply, and you can only open up so many mines. The mines will only last a certain long, and if you're going to have longevity, we have to stop wasting precious resources. And so it had to be found ways to add back items that can be regenerated. So it's about sustaining our world, because we can't continue to depend on just one single source. If you're always depending on the earth as your single source, you are going to have issues and troubles in the future. The only way we continue what our lifestyles want to be into the future is finding alternative processing opportunities. And so it's that urban mining, that reuse, regeneration of pieces that have already come out of the ground.
Yeah, that's impressive. And even more impressive is the percentage of efficiencies. For example, the Regenx achieves about 95% recovery, 99% less water, and zero tailings. How did you make that possible?
Most of the times in urban mining, you are substantially reducing what your footprint is, because anytime we're doing with a regeneration source, our grades and the amount of quantity that we can get is greatly increased from a mine, where it's deep underground. You've got to move a lot of dirt. You have to have a lot of infrastructure to do this. So all that hard work has already been done once. And to regenerate it, it takes a lot less work and energy to extract it back from the places that it was built into. And so that's how we can be so much less on a footprint, is because we don't have to do that labor intensive, environmentally intensive, capital intensive process that gets it out of the ground the first time.
Why that site, and what's the great vision behind it?
So that site was picked for a couple reasons, but the majority of that is logistical. Um, Tennessee is ideally located on the eastern seaboard of the United States, along most of the major transportation hubs, transportation corridors. Example I like to give to a lot of people is when FedEx started out, their main transportation hub was in Memphis, Tennessee. So it's a very centralized location for a large population of the United States. So it allows us to collect the necessary catalytic converters to be processed in that area.
That's impressive. So, what is PGM? For the benefit of me and the audience, what does the PGM stand for?
So PGM is platinum group metals. So it's a group of metals that are similar in nature to each other around platinum. Platinum, palladium, rhodium, those types of metals. And they are very effective oxidizers. And so what they do is they allow a chemical reaction to happen. And that chemical reaction in catalytic converters sort of converts your smog gases into less harmful. Um, so catalytic converters came around mainly in the 70s for vehicles, and it was an attempt and a very successful endeavor to reduce the smogs that are in cities. If people remember the late 70s and that, there used to be hazes that just layered over cities from automobiles. And you don't see that anymore because of the success of the reactions that the catalytic converters have taken.
Yeah, that's good. So, in the news, we hear a lot about critical minerals. Just out of curiosity, is these PGMs related to the broad topics of the critical minerals discussion, which is going on around the world?
Yeah, they are. They're a part of a lot of the current part for the automobiles require this platinum and palladium for their catalytic converters. But even in the longer term, a lot of the alternative energy sources like hydrogen and that depend a lot on the platinum and palladium to make them work. So there's a lot of the energy conversion type marketplaces that require PGMs to be effective. And so they are listed on the US Department of Energy critical minerals list, Canada's critical minerals list, and a bunch of them all around the world as pieces. And part of that also is that even now there's a undersupply in the market. Over the past 8 years, there's been about 259,000 ounces of deficit each year on average of platinum and palladium that's required by the current marketplace.
Yeah. And in my basic economics class, I'm an engineer by trade, but in my basic economic class, where there is scarcity, the price generally goes up. So that is an issue from a price perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and the they go in little ebbs and flows, but there is a long-term price increasing probably in those commodities.
Yeah, that's good. So exploring on that PGM then, so the global PGM shortfall is, no joke. What's behind it? How does Regenx offer a North American solution?
So a lot of it happens partly because where the supply is. Most of the 80% of the supply comes out of Russia or South Africa. And so both of those countries have their own geopolitical risk profiles. Um, South Africa has infrastructure issues. Um, Russia has political infrastructure issues, those types of places. And even with adding electric vehicles, the amount of global auto demand keeps increasing. We saw a dip in the COVID years, but all that demand for new autos has surpassed the COVID dip and back to where it was going. And it's continued to look for in the near term to continue increasing. And part of that is also with the concept that EVs aren't seeing the same market penetration that the first heralding of them said. We're not seeing that replacement as quick. And for our baseline, for Regenex's baseline, we're really not seeing it in the diesel market because with what diesels are built for, EVs aren't yet a good substitute.
Yeah, no doubt there is a number of market dynamics going on in the automotive sector. You talk about the internal combustion engines and EV, but there is also the uh, AI powered vehicles, or is it AV, automated vehicles all coming in. So yeah, no doubt there are a number of interesting changes coming up. So how are you tackling the illegal catalytic converter that you mentioned, which is in those vehicle transmission train towards the exhaust? How are you tackling those illegal
So
markets through any secure partnerships?
yeah, so there's a couple different factors going on play on that. And uh, you saw a rash of that a while ago, but you're seeing less and less of that in the news because the problem hasn't gone away, but is reducing. And part of that rationale that it's reducing, especially in the US, around the concept of things that have been implemented are know your customer. So on each of the pieces on the value chain, we have to be shown to prove where the ownership is of those materials. We've even turned away a package because he couldn't show the chain of custody of the products. So where it's being tackled is on the buy side as the supply funnel narrows. And so at that point in line, they're showing, okay, show some validation for where you're getting your products from before it will be accepted into the supply chain.
Yeah, that's clearly it improves the security of supply and any key challenges within. So, could the Regenx model be replicated globally? And if so, what could be the bottleneck?
So we can, and we do plan to expand globally. We have our first operation, and then we'll expand that operation to maximize that location. Like I said, part of it's on logistics and supply chain management on how you set up. So you look for places in the world that would make some sense to put an operation. And we believe that there is opportunities worldwide for where we go. How we do that, we probably won't ourselves set up ones. There's a lot of difficulty in trying to set up operations worldwide based on, traditions, regulations, all that. So our thought it would be to look to partner with groups on setting up new operations outside of the US.
Okay, that's good. So the description of minimizing going to the virgin materials or keep going back to the earth to get raw materials, clearly there is a contribution from a regenerative perspective. But why is urban mining more than a buzzword, and what does it really mean for the environmental impact?
Well, it's twofold on environmental impact. Is first off, you're diverting stuff from landfills. So you're just, and some of this stuff has toxicity to it. So you're poisoning some of the areas that you are dumping these items. So if you can divert them and then recreate valuable property, well, that allows you to grow at exponential levels that you couldn't before. And also, if you're always counting on finding new resources in the ground, your growth is limited as a world, as a population. So you have to have sustainable growth, you have to be reusing scarce resources. You Our future with the size of the people that we are and the growth levels that we'd like to continue with cannot happen if you do not have secondary use of items.
Yeah, that's huge opportunity there. So let's talk about ESG. So how does the Regenx go beyond the legal aspect, but also to lead with transparency within the supply chain? I know you touched on some of the supply chain of returning or not accepting the traceability, but I'm keen to know, are there any other aspect of leading with transparency?
Well, the next step is to become sort of full circle, a circular economy. And where we're starting to work with is on OEM suppliers, the builders, and sort of having a whole circle of they build it, it comes out to their product, they recover it, send it to us, we get them their metals and send it back to them so that they can build again with that, which then allows them to have a better understanding of their supply chain, allows them to move away from environmental footprints, those types of items, and gives them a lot more control on the quality and location of their product.
Yeah, that's good. So one of the pushback around recovering is the embodied energy which is required to recover, the processing of recovering the materials. There's energy content or energy involved. Again, uh, how would you respond to managing that embodied energy?
So what we look at is what we're doing is actually a much less energy intensive solution to current recycling. So a lot of catalytic converters are already recycled. 30% of the PGMs used every year comes from recycled materials. But that recycling is happening by smelting. So big furnaces melting everything down. And that is very energy costly. Our process, we only heat our solution up to 80 degrees Celsius. So very little energy into it. And it's a chemical reaction. So we're allowing chemistry to break down our parts and extract the PGMs from the material. And we're set up in the size of a warehouse. So our energy footprint, our location footprint, all those types of baselines are very minimal as compared to how much is used in smelting process.
Yeah, that's good. Again, perhaps for the benefit of the listeners, I don't know the process internally, but my guess is the smelting will be more than 400 degrees
Oh,
compared to. 80 degrees.
Yeah, even more than that. I mean, you to get precious metals to smell to uh, to melt, you're up in the 500-600 degrees type
Right.
things. So
Yeah, that's good. So again, I think that helps with the audience to see, okay, we're talking about 500 to 80, and the
yeah,
more the higher the temperature, the more generally the amount of energy. So yes, there will be energy involved, but the scale and the difference. So thanks for helping with us on that. So clearly you've worked across construction, mining, and tech. Which is the hardest industry to shift towards sustainability?
well, it would be mining because it's all about economics and it's all about how you do things. So bigger is better. So they have done some things by going into bigger, but as you go along in lives of mines, you have to keep moving more and more dirt to get smaller and smaller amounts of precious materials. So it's just the nature of how you do things is that most of the easy mining has been done in the world. So it's now more and more complex, more and more costly, all those types of items. So as you add complexity, it's harder to be more sustainable.
What would you say is your approach to leading through innovation in high risk, high regulated industries like mining?
So it's about a learning culture. I mean, you can't expect to do everything. And talk from the tech side too, is that what we've been doing for with Regenx is all one of a kind first of the time. And so you've got to go in with understanding that you're going to have to learn and that you have to be willing to question what you're doing to make sure you understand why and what is happening. Because things are going to happen both positive and negative. And when we talk about learning, a lot of people just say, well, you're learning from your mistakes. No, you're also learning from your successes on why that was a success and how you can replicate it and how you can even do it better. And so have a learning culture, you also have to have a collaborative culture. You have to have a trusting culture, and you have to be willing to talk about things, both positive and negative, to make sure you understand what's the next step and how to move into that next step.
What advice would you give to sustainability CEOs or startups who are aspiring to be successful companies of how to transform these extractive businesses?
Patience. Patience. You need to have patience. You need to push, but you need to understand that nothing moves in a straight line. And so you have to have the patience to know you're going to move and then retrench, refigure out, move forward again type thing. But that takes patience. And when I say patience, it's not just what you do, it's preaching patience up and down your organization to the stakeholders on the outside, to the people on your internal side, that because there is a chance for a lot of frustration, and especially when things don't happen the way you'd like them or don't happen how you anticipated them, you've got to then be able to deal with those frustrations and still see a path forward. And the only way you can do that is if you stay calm, stay patient, stay in the moment to be able to retool, retrench, move forward.
I mentioned before we started, I do sustainability advisory. And one of the common misconceptions or pitfalls for startup is when they're trying to build a regenerative product or a sustainable product, they don't tend to focus on getting the product to be amazing, to be the best the customer really wants. And then they can go to the customer if the price is even higher than the competitors, for example, if that is the case. I'm curious to know from your experience, what advice would you give to startups or sustainable startups about the essence of making sure that the product meets the customer's expectations from the quality and performance, and adding the environmental credentials or the regenerative credentials?
So, like how I talked about, we found a niche in the catalytic that most of them were flowing through the smelters, but we found an area that wasn't being served. And that's part of what you have to do is that you have to first find what your product is and what niche, what niche is it going to serve? And then it's sort of looking at, so, okay, if I design it like this and I can do this, what will my niche market want? And will they be willing to pay more because it fits into a niche with ESG or those types of things, or is it a commodity? And if it's a pure commodity, you have to understand that most of those economics is going to win, and you're not going to be able to charge a premium because you did this. But so that's not a place you need to be looking for. So it's understanding your niche, then looking at saying, can I, with what I want to do, is it a product that's going to be wanted? And does it fill that niche what isn't being filled currently?
So, what are the upcoming technologies, innovations that are coming up in the next 5 years within your industry that excites you?
Well, we're on the leading edge right now for what we're doing, and what we're more focused on with what we're trying to accomplish. So we have a research team that works with us, and we're constantly looking at how we could make our product better. How can we do it less expensive? How can we make it more efficient? How can we increase any of the pieces that we're working on so that we can expand? And what we're hoping to do is that as we keep going along, again, like I talked about, we found a niche that wasn't being used, but can we continue to drive what we're doing lower and lower, that we then become competitive to the traditional sources? And we can offer this green solution to traditional sources because we've done the research, we've done the hard work to drive the costing down, that we keep becoming more and more competitive against what the current marketplace is.
That's impressive. What's next for Regenx? What should we watch out for in the next 12 to 18 months?
Sure. So we had to move locations, and which was quite the process and involved getting new permits. So we just got our new permits. So we're allowed now to restart our process at our new location. So we'll be looking to start processing material, and then as this year goes along, be up to full capacity, and we're looking to sort of be able to process about 4,000 pounds a day of catalytic converters. And so that will put us on a good sustainable track for allowing the company to grow and prosper.
For listeners or potential customers who are listening, what is your final thought for business leaders or startups or customers within the Regenx?
So we're proud of what we've done. We've had exceptional group of people working with us, both from outside and inside, to grow us to be where they're, and we're right at that cusp of that. We're ready to take off and make this a true business and move out of the startup phase. So we're excited about our future, and we're looking forward to becoming a real name in this sector.
That's great. So, perhaps as a final one, if listeners want to find more about your work done or to contact you, where and how can they contact you?
Yeah, so the best place to get more information on us is our website, regenx.tech, and we're also a publicly traded company. So we're listed in both Canada and the US. In Canada as RGX, in the US as RGXTF. So if people are interested in our story, there's an investment opportunity, and then our website is our greatest portal to getting to know more about us.
That's great. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening to Sustainability Transformations. Remember, the path to sustainability isn't always clean, but with the leadership like Don's, it can be clearly better. Until next time, stay curious, stay committed, and keep transforming. Thank you so much, Don.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to people about our story.
That's great. You're welcome.